Good afternoon. This is Kathleen Smith at ClearedJobs.Net, a veteran-owned job board job fair company. And I am joined again by my colleague, Bob Wheeler. Bob, wave hi to everyone.
Hello.
So with May being Military Appreciation Month, we are doing another series of our Military Mondays where we give advice to transitioning military personnel just to make sure that they understand some of the basic tools that are needed as part of their transition into the civilian world. So, Bob, do you want to share a little bit about yourself to let everyone know why you're qualified to be presenting today?
Hey, so my name is Bob Wheeler. I have been at ClearedJobs.Net for going on 7 years now. Prior to this, I was in the Navy for 20 years. The last part of that, I was a recruiter. I recruited doctors for the Navy up in Baltimore. So that's how I got into the recruiting business. And from there, I transitioned into working for ClearedJobs.Net, and I've done a lot of other stuff with transition classes, teaching transition classes. I've been a big veteran advocate, done some speaking at different events, especially back in the before times when we could do face-to-face things. But yeah, so I'm happy to be here.
And you've also done several virtual transition. You've
Yes.
presented at DEF CON, you've presented at several of B-Sides San Antonio,
Hmm.
B-Sides Las Vegas. So we're really glad that you're able to take those skills and pivot them into the virtual community. So we were talking a little bit earlier in the green room about how transitioning military folks really need to understand some basic tools. And not many people understand that job boards have been around since 1994, and they're a really great way to grab some ground intel into your job search. So why don't you start us off a little bit and explain how do job boards work?
Yeah, so this is the first thing, and we'll start big picture here. You got to understand how a tool is designed to work, and it's one of those things where you kind of, I guess, follow the money in some ways. Um, you know, so job boards are out there, and they work because companies pay to have access to those things. So hiring companies, whether it's government contractors or anything else, they either pay money for them to post jobs, but also what they do is they pay money to have access to resumes so they can search those resumes. So when you look at those things, it's important to look and understand. Some of the smaller companies may only have a few jobs posted. That doesn't necessarily mean that's all the jobs they have available. It just means that's all I've got posted. But particularly when you look at smaller companies, if they're paying to have access for those tools, then they're hiring. And if they've only got a few jobs posted, those might be their most important jobs, but they're spending money to do that. So you want to know about that. And then the other thing just to know about job boards is there's difference between niche job boards and more general job boards. ClearedJobs.net, for example, we're a niche, so we focus just on government contractors and positions that require clearances. There's other job boards out there that are just kind of, we'll take anybody and everybody, which is fine. I'm not saying that one is definitely better than the other, but just understand that they're different tools. And understanding that the job postings, which is what we're going to focus on today, but just understand that when it comes to job boards, that's only part of the value. That the resume database access is another part of the value of a job board, and that's the ways that the job boards make money.
Thanks for sharing that. One thing that I always share is understanding that when employers are posting jobs on a job board that they're paying money to do
Hmm.
that, but that doesn't mean that we are the only job board that they use. So understanding the overall functions of a job board, but also understanding that being part of more than one job board is a really great strategy because not everyone is going to be in one place. You have to sort of diversify your sort of search tactics.
Yeah.
So,
And it's
our,
usually free for the job seeker too. So that it's outside of a few minutes to create the profile. It doesn't really cost you much.
yes, that's a great thing. So, let's talk about the next function using the search feature for jobs by skill set, job titles, and geography separately. How is that good for grabbing ground intel in your job search?
Yeah. So see, now we're going to focus on actually using the job board for intelligence gathering. So what I'm talking about here is this is a tool that you can use not necessarily when you think that you're applying for a job that you can start tomorrow. This is what you can do when you're 6 months, a year, 2 years out before you get out of the military. And so what you want to do is you want to use the search features of a job board to look for jobs, but look for them. Don't try to hit a home run. That's what I tell people. Don't say I'm looking for a signals intelligence program management job with a full scope poly in Annapolis, Maryland. Bam. Like don't if you do that, you might find a job that's interesting, but what you're trying to do for this intelligence thing is you want to search in different ways. So search for just skill sets first. Take a look at those jobs that come up. Search by some different job titles. and see what kind of jobs come up. Search by just location, particularly if you plan on going someplace where there's not a lot of, where maybe it's outside your area, just to see what kind of companies are working in that location. Because when you search wide, you can find all those things out, and you can start to learn about, when it comes to the skill sets and the job titles, for example. When you search by those things and you're looking, no matter where they're located, even if it's a place you don't want to go to, you're learning about the industry that you're going to be involved in. You're going to start to learn what kind of tools are required, what kind of certifications are required. The way that one company explains something might be a different way, so you're learning the lingo. So that's the value of doing that. And then the geography, like I said, searching to find out what kind of companies even do business. Because I know when I came out of the military, I had no idea how many government contractors there were. Obviously I knew the big ones. I knew there was a lot, but until I had a job here where I had to look, learn how to reach out to all of them. Oh my goodness, there's tons and tons and tons out there. And so you can find these things, and then you can learn more about those companies.
Great. And I think that one thing in your recommendation of sort of separating it out by skill set, job titles, and geography is to understand that, as one thing that we hear complaints about all the time from both job seekers and recruiters is that job postings are never really written very well. So when you really go in and start doing the searching first by skill set, then by job titles, then by geography, you're actually expanding your net
Hmm.
and you're finding more information. So this is really helpful in being able to narrow down what you're looking for, because there is no, I hate to say it, there is no perfect job posting out there. There is no perfect job requirement out there. You sometimes have to peel away a layer and be able to look a little deeper. So really, really great advice here. So let's go on to the next one, using multiple job postings to validate your current position in the marketplace. You want to explain that a little bit more?
Yeah. So again, and this is, they're obviously kind of building on each other and tying into each other. But by using multiple different, by looking and reading different job postings in each one of those things, is you can kind of compare and contrast. And again, remember, we're talking here about using job postings for career intelligence. This is where the job board is more useful than just finding the job you're going to apply to. So as we said, when you look at those from different ways, you're going to see that some places require certain certifications. It seems like if you start to see, in government contracting, this can be something that's pretty common, where the government requires, certain certifications, 85, 70 certifications for information technology or something like that, or those types of things. If you see that those are common across the board, that really tells you, I better get these certs. This is where you can do like what we used to call gap analysis back in the military when I did training. You can see what you're missing, what you don't have. So that's what you need to, and while you still have time to try to get those things. And like we'd also said, you look at learning the different terms too, because one of the things that really just kind of flusters people when they start to look for jobs, if you wait too late, is you start looking at job titles that say, um, you know, systems administrator 2, and then something else says junior systems administrator, and something else says, systems administrator, 3. But what are the differences? It can be very overwhelming. So the more you can look at those things ahead of time to learn about all of that stuff, you'll start to get a feel for what those different jobs are. And here's the other key. This is going to be, it's going to give you that information to have good conversations later on when you network with people. Because, we also talked about later on, you're not going to know the answer to your salary expectation question, stuff like that. If you don't even know what the job is as a systems administrator too, how do you know if you fit the salary expectations? So the more you learn these things, the more you learn that lingo, when you're having those conversations with people that you meet, when you're networking events and talking to folks and all that kind of thing, you know what kind of questions to ask, and you can ask those questions while you still have time to, to use the information that you're going to get.
Bob, let's, talk about something a little off topic right now, or something that we didn't prepare for, but how would someone take their MOS and
Hmm.
compare it up with multiple job postings? So, I know a lot of times we talk about it is not really apples to apples, but how can having your MOS and then looking at multiple job postings, how can that help someone who's transitioning to build a better strategy of the kind of jobs to look for?
It's a good question. First thing I would say is be you're going to need more than one tool. There's a lot of MOS translators out there where you can put in your MOS or your NEC or whatever version you had, and it's going to give you these titles. So first of all, here's number one: know what you actually do besides your MOS. I mean, like I said, when I was coming out of the Navy, my MOS was 8404, which was Fleet Marine Force Hospital Corpsman. I put that in. It gave me all this EMT stuff and things like that, which that's not what I wanted to do. So you definitely want to know what it is that you want to do when you're moving forward. The other thing is don't just look at your MOS or your NEC or your officer candidate code or anything like that. Look at the tools that you use so that when you're going to search, if you happen to know that you work with budget analysis or something like that, or a specific program that works with budgeting, or a computer program or something like that, look for those key things to figure things out, and then kind of work it backwards. I think that working your MOS is important, but just watch out for the shortcuts, because some of the shortcuts I just think are, they're a little bit too clever by half, and you're not going to get what you're looking for.
So what would be a recommendation? You started to say that earlier about if you have an MOS, but really looking at what you do. So
Yeah.
what did you do? So you had, hospital corpsman recruitment. How did you break that down into what you ended up picking out as your career?
Yeah, so I did, and I looked at a couple of different things, because before I was a recruiter, I did 2 tours as an instructor, and I was, and one was curriculum development. So I would look at things like, if I was going to look for curriculum development positions, I might search for that, and then I start to see other keywords that are coming in there, like instructional design and different methods. I know the military uses like the ADDIE method. That I don't want to get too technical about what I was doing, but you start to learn those pieces. And again, if you just looked and said, well, I was an 8404 hospital corpsman, and I put that in there, it builds so broadly. And this is a much more difficult thing for people who've been in for 10 or 20 years in the service, as opposed to somebody who was only in for one tour. If you're a combat engineer and you've done 4 years in the Marine Corps, 5 years in the Marine Corps, you're still doing the combat engineer kind of stuff. But if you stick around for another couple tours, pretty soon you're teaching at the schoolhouse and you're doing a recruiting tour, and your whole career kind of gets mumbo jumboed up. Um, so, like I said, you look at all the different things that you've done, and if you're going to use MOS type things, kind of attack it from the different MOSs that you had, the sub MOSs that you might have had. But also, if it's not something you want to do, then don't even go down that path. If it's just, people do a lot of stuff in the military that they say they're never going to do again. That's a good learning experience in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I think that that's one thing that I always end up talking to folks about, as far as, maybe they were, as you said, as you were a hospital corpsman, but that's not what really resonated with their skill set, or wasn't really what they were fulfilled in doing. And so I think, it's okay to say, I was this in the military, but I'm going to take specific skill sets and I'm going to build another kind of a career afterwards. And that's where using the multiple job postings to validate exactly what you want to do, being able to go in and look at those key activities that you did and what you like to do. And that goes back to your earlier point of searching on skill sets. So is it budgeting and analysis, or is it working with specific technical programs? Really breaking that down so that you can see what those other types of job postings are like. Because I always feel very sorry for folks who are transitioning out of the military, and they just sort of try to do apples to apples, and then they end up not looking at all the potential that they have.
And then they get frustrated, and it just builds on itself to be bad stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and we don't want that. We have
Yeah.
too many talented professionals coming out of the military. We want to find them a good place in the civilian world. So let's go on to the next point. Using a job board, really great place to grab sort of ground intel. So how do you suggest people use a job board to research, track, and connect with companies?
Yeah. So, and we started off a couple of points ago talking about, going by location and skill set and different things, so you can find those companies. So boom, you're seeing companies. That's the beginning, but you've got to continue on with that. So, take your list of companies that you find, and then you're going to want to build your research. It's exactly what it sounds like. But here's the keys. Number one, don't just don't just rely on name recognition. There's a lot of great jobs at Mantech, and there's a lot of great jobs, at Jacobs and these big giant companies. But there's also a lot of jobs at smaller companies. So when you're doing your research, don't just focus on the big names, and don't just say, well, I've never heard of that company, so I'm not even going to look them up. This is exactly the time to start looking those folks up. And then when you do that, so you can search on LinkedIn. Get a LinkedIn search by the company. You can find people and try to reach out and connect with these people, and reach out not just to recruiters, but to operational people who are doing the business. And you can tell when you look at someone's a blank, not a blank, but a non-connected LinkedIn profile. If they've only got 5 other connections and they have no activity, that connection is not going to mean much. But if you see somebody who's active and they're in different groups and they're doing things, 100% connect with them. Even if you plan on not working for that company, if they're in your industry, that's a good connection to make. So search for those people, find those people, reach out and connect with them. And then also follow these companies on LinkedIn and follow them on other social media platforms as well, because this is how you're going to really discover what's going on at those companies. And you're going to see what contracts they're winning, what's going on with them. You will get a feel for which companies are doing good, doing not, and not doing good. You're going to also get a feel for what kind of things they're hiring for. And again, this is good information if you got out of the military yesterday, but it's terrific information if you don't get out for another year. This is the stuff we're talking about that's going to, you're planting seeds in your process, and you're going to harvest this later on, but you got to do the work now, and this is what you're going to be working for.
So, one thing that we should keep mentioning is that these are practices and strategies you should be doing throughout your career,
Yeah.
just not just when you're transitioning out of the military. And I think researching, tracking, and connecting with companies is something that we always recommend job seekers do throughout their career, throughout any job they have, because we never know if a contract's going to be renewed. We don't know if there's going to be a rift in place. We don't know if there's going to be another pandemic. So there's I know, bite my tongue.
Yeah.
I know, but these are all good strategies to have in place as you do your overall career development, because so many times we look at our job and then we think we're going to, many folks in the military think that the next job that they find out of the military is the one that they're going to have for the next 20
Mm-hmm.
years. But when we look at all the Department of Labor statistics, more than 80% of transitioning military personnel leave their first job within the first year because it isn't a good fit or for some other
Yeah.
reason.
And I think that has to do with the fact that so many people have a hard time tracking these things. So they end up taking the first job that they get because they didn't take the time to find a good fit. The more prepared you are, and the better you do this early, the more likely you are to find the good fit. So you're not that statistic that says, yeah, I worked there for 6 months before it just turned out it wasn't for me type thing. And the other thing about the smaller companies that I really want to throw out there is, by following them and checking out things, you don't freak out because you've never heard of the name. There's a lot of small companies, and the mark of success for small companies, how long have they been in business, and are they winning contracts? There's companies that you've never heard of that have been doing business for 30 years, you know. And so when you follow them, you'll see what kind of stability there is. And a lot of times, coming out of the service, you're so used to the stability of the military, you want stability in your next job. And because you've never heard of that company's name, you just assume they're not stable. But in most cases, they're stable. So do that kind of research to find out.
Now, I always recommend for transitioning military to definitely, as you've been saying, look at the smaller companies because there might be more opportunities.
Hmm.
But we all know that there's a kind of culture that we all like working in. Some people like being
Yeah.
a part of the large companies, and
Hmm.
some people might thrive in the smaller companies. So let's dig a little bit deeper into job agents. So first, why don't you describe what a job agent is, and then let's go into the strategy of using them.
Yeah. So job agents are basically, and this is just a general job board technology. So just about every job board is going to have something similar to this. Some will be better than others as far as the way they actually work, but they're all going to work roughly the same. Where it's basically going to say, do you want me to send you an email update of everybody every time there's new jobs that get posted for something like this? So this is the kind of thing that I think can be very, very useful, again, early on, because you're going to get this email to see what things are getting posted. So you don't have to get on the job board every day to look and see what's going on. But when you do a job agent, you want to make sure that it's a job agent that's not bringing back too much junk. If it's too wide, it's going to bring back too many things. If it's too narrow, it's not going to bring back anything. So you want to, after you've run some searches and you say, okay, well, if you know that you're going someplace that doesn't have a lot of, opportunities, it's a small area. Let's say you're going back to Auburn, Alabama, or something, or Huntsville, Alabama, or something like that. Maybe you run a job agent just for anything in Huntsville that's, uses a clearance or uses that kind of that's in information technology or whatever. That's nice and wide. You couldn't really run that same agent maybe for the Northern Virginia area, just because you get so much stuff updated every day that it would become overwhelming. But when you get one of those things, set some of those email updates, some of those resume agents, and if it doesn't work out, if it's bringing back too many or too less, don't be afraid to cancel it and set a new one until you can get some that's really good. Because ideally, what you want to see is you want to see an email that comes in every day for a while that's got new job postings, and so you say, "Oh, I've never heard of that company. Oh, I've never heard of that company." Put them on your list, check them out. Um, like I said, this is something it's it's underutilized as far as a tool goes. I think unfortunately people try to only set these things up when they're ready to apply for jobs. When like, oh, I'm going to get out, I'm going to start applying. And then because you also haven't figured out how the technology works, you might end up setting a bad resume agent or a job agent to where you're getting, all of a sudden jobs for, you know, things that aren't even in your wheelhouse or something like that. So setting up those job agents is really key to help that sustained effort as you're moving forward towards your transition.
Yes, I think that building a job agent is really great because it also keeps you on task because
Yeah.
so many times people build a job board profile and then they all of a sudden sort of forget about it and then they go on with the rest of their life and they sort of forget that they have this tool to
Hmm.
be able to gather some intel and to be able to build their sort of job search.
And this
So I'm gonna, oh,
before we
go ahead.
before you jump before I just want to tag on to what you're saying. There's something that's not on our script either, but a tip you're going to hear a lot is that as you get ready, think about having your own email address for your transition type thing. So you could put your job board access under a specific email address so that you don't have these agents, which are important, but you don't want to get them mixed up with the junk mail that's coming onto your regular, civilian account. You also don't want to set these up for your civilian or your government account, because once you get out, of the military, you lose that. And even if you stay in the service, I remember when I went from 2nd Marine Division to recruiting, I had to lose my USMC account, USMC.mil account, to get a Navy.mil account. So I lost all of that stuff. So having a specific email address for your job search things is going to pay dividends in the long run.
So I'm going to throw a new question at you that
Yeah.
I know you'll be ready for.
Hey,
So
it's Monday. I got you.
it's Monday. So one thing we haven't talked about is so many people are used to building their resume,
Hmm.
but how do you build a really good profile on a job board?
Yeah. Okay. That's a great question, and this is something that I think because job seekers don't really understand that other use of job boards where the recruiters are searching resumes, um, they tend to not think this is as important as it really is, but it's super important. So when you build your profile, and again, this is it's free on job boards to build a profile. Answer all the questions, because the reason those questions exist is because it was the recruiters and the hiring managers who tell the job board, say, oh, I wish I had this kind of information at my fingertips, you know. And when you put your resume in there, I mean, our job board is a niche resume, so database. So we're just cleared people, just security cleared people, and we've got hundreds of thousands of resumes in there. And if you're on another job board that has no restrictions of what kind, it's even more. So those recruiters get on there and they're going to put in things like keywords and they're going to search by location. But when the profile comes up, there's usually some basic information before they even look at your resume to entice that recruiter to decide, do they want to open your resume up or not? Like on our site, we have things like your key skills, where you can list your key skills and how long you've been doing them. We can also list alternate work locations, places you'd be willing to work other than where you happen to live right now. Um, those things are super important. And a lot of times people don't fill those out. They just skip that. And so it just has the person's name. And so you're basically asking the recruiter, hey, open my resume, and just see what's in there after you've run your search. Sometimes if a search result comes up and says 500 more resumes in your search, and they want to go through those, they've got a lot of time to go through those. So and if a whole bunch came in on the same day, and they don't have a lot of time, they might go to the ones that have got the key skills that they're looking for. So filling it out completely. And then the other thing is, all job boards will not all, but essentially almost all job boards will show resumes in the most recently updated profiles first. And so that's an important thing. So like on our site, you've got to log on. So when you log on, it updates your profile. So the recruiter knows if you've been on today, you're more likely to be a interested job seeker. If you haven't been on our site in 15 months, they might consider you a passive job seeker. So maybe they don't reach out to you as much. So when you're really in the job hunt mode, logging on, and I tell people at least once a month, just to keep yourself in the same calendar month, you look like you're fresh. Even if there's people ahead of you, you're still fresh. So I would say you always want to log on at least once a month when you're in the job hunt mode. If you're 2.5 years out and you're just using the job board for other things, it's not that big a deal when you log on. But once you get closer to your time to get out, once you hit that 6-month mark or so, you want to start logging in once a month.
Great. So in our wrap up, I'm going to do something different here. I'm going to have you go through each one of the points and just wrap it up with
Bingo,
one particular. So here, understand how job boards work. Go.
Resume, it's resume database access and it's job postings, but it's paid for by the companies. So there's a reason they're on there. They're spending money.
Using the search function.
Don't try to hit a home run with your first search function. Search widely from different angles so that you can learn a lot, so you can learn what you need to do better as you go forward.
Multiple job postings.
Similar, lots of different job postings for the same thing so that you can learn different ways that people say things, different tools that they use, so you can get a broad picture because you're trying to learn what you need to do.
And also you need to be able to find out what certifications and skills you need to have that job in the civilian world.
Mm-hmm.
Research, track, and connect.
Big companies and small companies do this early, do this consistently, use social media and other tools that can make it even easier for you.
Job agents.
Job agents are what you set so that you can get updated of new job postings so that you can learn which companies are now doing what you want to do. This is a great way to continue to learn what kind of companies are in your wheelhouse as you move forward without having to log on every single day.
How to build your profile.
Complete it all. It doesn't cost nothing. So do it all because you are helping people find you by doing it that way.
And make sure that you have a job search email that is not attached to your military email. Mm-hmm. Well, Bob, thank you so much for your time. If we didn't get to your question, please feel free to send us an email at customerservice@ClearedJobs.Net. We will definitely get back to you. And we do have a a virtual job fair coming up on May 18th for CI and full scope polys. Hope to see you there, and make sure that you can research and interact with the companies they're exhibiting there.
Hey, they can all hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm B Wheeler 5 is the number, but you find me ClearedJobs.Net. Bob Wheeler. I will connect with any transitioning veteran at any time. Hit me up.
Sounds great. Thank you, everyone, for your time. Bob, again, thanks so much for joining us. Take care.
Bye, guys.
Bye.